teach you how to set up some sort of a camera that follows the player around. After that, we're gonna make the player move using WSAT. Let's go. In order to create the illusion of a camera following the player, we need to change the origin of the canvas. Canvas is what we see on the screen, and the origin of the canvas is always on top left of the screen. Whenever we're using JavaScript or P5js canvas, it's always on top left. So don't forget that. In order to always see the everything moves, but the player is always in the middle of a screen, we need to change the origin to the position of a screen. So we draw everything else according to that location. Imagine this. If I want to, for this, we use a function called translate, which is a part of P5js. Translate does the exact thing we want. It changes the origin before we draw anything. So whenever I use translate x and y, with x and y I mean the location of the player, it basically takes the canvas origin, which is top left, it moves it to the location of the player, just like that, and it will draw other things according of that location. For example, the location is here right now. This probes or these stones, maybe in pury.space, are now are around the player, and player is always seen on top left of the screen. What we want to do is the player to be seen in the middle of a screen, so we need to do a minus width and minus height as well, so it becomes like that. Player always be in the middle of a screen, and the location and the 0 is now over here, should be somehow over here. Sorry, just like that. So we need to change the origin from here all the way, from here all the way to here. If you notice, this is not the 0 anymore. This should be something else. This should be, maybe I can write something else. What is this? How can I get that? Let's do it here. Whenever I say translate to the width divided by 2 minus x and height divided by 2 minus y. X and y are the location, maybe player y location, and px and py. That is better. Okay, so whenever I say translate to this location, all right, it will first of all move the origin of the canvas to the location of the player, then it minus it by the width, then it minus it by the height, and it will become over here. Okay, we will get that. So this is basically, this is the number we are looking for over here. And that's it. Let's go ahead and use translate in our code. I'm gonna hit save. I'm gonna go to OK over here. First, let's open the project. Just like before, just open folder in Visual Studio Code, choose your project. This is the final project we had. This is same as episode 6 now. I select that, I open it. Go to the server.js. I'm gonna get rid of every comment here. Also, I'm gonna get rid of these console logs. I don't want to see them here. Maybe only the first one. Just like that. Then I'm gonna go to the sketch.js. Then I'm gonna get rid of all the comments here. They are just making our code less readable. I'm gonna get rid of those, and that's all good. What am I going to do here? I changed nothing by now. I only deleted the comments we didn't need. The only thing I want to do is to use the translate function. So before I do this, let's start the game, see what will change. Not server.js. I'm gonna hit enter, successfully run. I'm gonna go to localhost 2000. Okay, there is our game. Not much to it, but a little bit of moving animation to the right. But now if I use the translate to the X and Y, and then I draw this on that location, if I refresh, I see some sort of this thing. If you notice, it just moved a little bit, maybe to one side. Just take a look at it. Okay, go back here. Where what we are doing here is actually what is changed on the screen. And by the way, the camera is not somehow following the following our character. But before that, I'm gonna draw a rectangle. If you're wondering how what it does, it just draws a rectangle on the screen. For me, it's a P5js function. I need to give it an X and Y, which is 0, 0, and 0, and maybe width of 600 and height of 600, and I want it to have a color of maybe 51, so it will be somehow a gray color. I hit refresh. Just look what happened. Oh, it's a little bit weird. What's going on here, you might ask? So what I'm going to change here is to add the width divided by 2 minus x and height divided by 2 minus y as well, because we don't have them yet. We translate to the location of the player, and then we draw everything according to that location, but we are never going back. We are never setting this in the middle of a screen. We're never saying that. So let's do that as well. So I should say width divided by 2 minus x, height divided by 2 minus y. Let's hit save, Control S, go back to here, refresh. There we go. We have the illusion of camera. Our canvas is always staying on top of the player, but look what's happening here. The rectangle behind it is not moving, where the player is moving. If you look at that closely, as you can see, we have the illusion of movement. So only the player, if you see here, only the player is moving according to the X and Y, but not the rectangle. All right. Now we have to go to the part. There are more. Before I do that, there are more to this stuff. Later on, I'm gonna use some other things like push, pop, stuff like that, and they're all in P5js references, you can see. But later on, we're gonna draw different and more complex shapes on the screen, and we will know how more we can use from this translate function. What I'm planning to teach you right now, the player is moving only to the right. The X is only plus equal to 1, but I want it to go to the direction I choose using WSAD. In order to do that, there are some functionalities of P5js we can use that helps us do it. But before going for that, I'm gonna create some other variables, global variables. One of them is var speed x, and the other one is gonna be var speed y. I guess they are straightforward to understand. Speed x is what is going to be the speed of x-axis, and speed y is going to be a speed of y-axis. And whenever I'm gonna say x plus equal to 1, I want it to be actually x plus equal to speed x, and after that I want my y also be plus equal to speed y, just like that. Maybe this should be y plus plus. Okay, with that in mind, nothing is changed now. The speed x is gonna be equal to 1, the speed y is gonna be equal to 0. Let's hit save, let's go back to code, refresh. Nothing is changed, but if I say speed y is equal to 1 as well, it's gonna go move to the bottom right, just like that. So I have movement to the x-axis and y-axis both together. What I'm planning to do, let me close this, refresh. Okay, The functionality that we are going to use in order to get the keyboard events, we're gonna know what key is pressed. We should use something called event. Event in P5js or JavaScript in general is we're basically tell the computer, okay, whenever something happens, just alert me and tell me what happened. Whenever a key is pressed, tell me, so I can do some functionality over that. That is called events. So events are somehow listeners. They are waiting to see what is changed on your computer, and they will tell you, okay, something is changed by the user. We're gonna use that. The best events I'm going to use for this situation is the key pressed and key released. You can find them in P5js references, key pressed and key released. Basically, you can click on them just like the draw function. We have the key pressed function as well. I'm gonna copy the whole thing. I'm gonna bring it back to our code, paste it here. Notice we have something. What just happened? We have the key released as well. So key released over here. I'm gonna get rid of these empty spaces, just like that. If you're wondering how I select things like this, I select text like this. I basically hold Alt and Shift together, then with the mouse and click, I can choose wherever I want. All right, I don't want these inside here, so I just want this. We should have something called return false as well, because that's something in P5js. P5js release, key release. If you click on that, you can see in the end they always return false. What does a return do? Every function can return a value. This one is gonna return a false. I'm gonna talk about returning in functions later on when we are going to use that. I'm not gonna talk about it much here. What it does basically is that preventing any default behaviors in this situation. In the key press, when you return false, it prevents any default behavior. We don't care about that right now. It should be there. Okay. Whenever a key is pressing, we're gonna know which key is pressed. In order to do that, we're gonna use something called an if statement. What is an if statement? It's basically we are asking the computer to check for a condition, to check if two numbers are equal, to check if a character is equal to another character. Some text file is equal to another text file. Is the password right or not? So the if statement is gonna always tell us true, yes, or false, no. What I'm going to check here is I'm gonna check if the key is 3 equals to what? Maybe W. Then in the curly brackets, I can say, okay, if the key is equal to W, what happens here? If you're wondering what is key, because key is not a variable that we created, it's a default thing by P5js. Whenever you call the key pressed or key released, you have access to a variable called key, and this key is holding the last key that is pressed or released. So that's it. You can have access to the key by using the key variable inside the key pressed or key released functionality or event of P5js. So I check if the key is W. I'm gonna say speedx, my speedx is equal to no, I'm sorry, I should change the speed y is equal to -1, because if you I already told you that the y-axis of canvas is always reversed. So when you say y++, it goes down, y minus it goes up. That's why I say, okay, whenever I press the W, the speed y is -1. And whenever the key is released, I'm gonna do the same thing. If the key that is released is W, what you should do, you should set the speed y back to 0. By the way, if you're wondering what kind of condition I can use, conditions I can use in an if statement, what can I use here? I will write it here. We can use equality, which is this or this. Somehow no different. Don't ask about that. You can use 2 equals or 3 equals, or we have something called and. We have another thing called or. So we have equality, whether this variable is equal to this one over here. So we use these 2 things for that. It's gonna either return, okay, it's gonna say yes, true, this is equal to this. It means that, okay, this line of code will be called. If these 2 are not true, so this will never happen. We will jump out of this if statement, simple as that. And if I use and here, it means that this part and this part both are true. Okay, I'm going to use and or later on, but what you should know about this, I'm gonna write it here. So for the or, if this side is true, or this side is true, no matter what. If one side of it is false, then the result of it is gonna be true. Okay, so true or false, who cares? It's true. Okay, let's talk about it in next session. It's a good thing to use to be taught in next session. Right now, I'm not gonna use much of them here. Okay, next one. Let's test this. Before I do anything, I'm gonna set the speed, both of the speeds back to 0. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna hit save, go back to our game, refresh. Alright, we have our player not moving, but whenever I hold the W, it goes up, and when I release it, it just stops. Just like that. We don't have the functionality with S, D, and A. Let's do them as well. So that was for W, S, A, D. W, S, A, D. If S is pressed, I'm gonna do the same thing. Y is equal to be number 1. If the A is pressed, we're gonna say X is equal to -1, and speed X is gonna be equal to 1 whenever D happens here. And I'm gonna copy the same thing, paste it over here, and I'm gonna set all them back to 0. So whatever happens here, I'm gonna set them back to 0. I'm gonna hit save, go back to game, refresh. Okay, I can move right, I can move wherever I want. If you want to move faster, you can always do that by, instead of going by 1, maybe I can go by 5. So everything should be 5. Let's hit save, go back to game, refresh. So I can basically move faster. Okay, I like how it works. Now, that's it all for today. I think it's enough. For the next episode, what I'm going to teach you I'm going to teach you everything about if statement and conditions of it. I'm going to teach you about if statements and condition of it. Also, we're going to talk about fundamentals of object-oriented, and we are going to create our very first object, our very first object, which is going to be our character. So 2 things we're gonna cover in the next episode that are too important. One of them are the if statement and its different varieties. Also, we're gonna work on the very basics of object-oriented, how to create a simple object that has all the information we need about our player. Thank you everyone for watching my video. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification button so you will be the first one who knows my next video is gonna pop up. The source code of this section is on the description below, so you can always go ahead and download the the source code of that session, of that episode. Also, all of my games are available for free to play. The link is in the description below. If you want the source code of my games, you can also find them on my GitHub account, which the link is again below in the description. Bye.